What's up, Bradley Aidan Johnson. I just wanted to do a video on progressive overload theory and its application to training programming, and how the way in which we understand training programming through progressive overload is slightly flawed on a theoretical basis by my calculations and what I believe. And I believe a slight shifting in the theory could lead to people exiting the novice stage faster than they do at the moment, which is ages. In fact, the vast majority of people that lift never do in fact exit the novice stage. They just keep spinning their wheels in it. Now, our understanding of training is based on progressive overload, which is you do something and you adapt to it, so you have to do something more to then adapt to that, to do something more to adapt to that, so that you improve and you go up and get stronger and better. I want it from your perspective. There you go, that way. So that's very simple. Everyone understands that. The problem is, and this is only in lifting weights, bodybuilding / powerlifting, just general going to the gym and picking heavy things up. The problem with it in that is that the thing you are trying to progressively overload in using as a parameter is increasing weight typically, but the thing that you want to achieve is increasing weight. This doesn't exist in other sports. The problem with that is that if you imagine football, your progressive overload in your sport may be increasing the amount of laps that you do, the speed that you run, the complexity of the drills that you do, things just very complicated things. But your result that you wish to achieve is beating people in your league until eventually you get to the top of your league perhaps, or you win a tournament and then you jump up to a new league or you qualify for another tournament or something like that. So what you're hoping to do is win, effectively, but what you're hoping to program is more complicated training program, more difficult training program, so you get better and better at football. Unfortunately, within weights and lifting weights, and this doesn't need to be competitive, it doesn't need to be bodybuilding, it doesn't need to be powerlifting, just any way in which that you're lifting weights. For most people that go to the gym, the thing they want is for their weight to go up, but the way in which they do it is by the weight going up. And because that exists in two places, conflicts of interest between the two arise, and it leads to programs that make errors that needn't be there. I'll give as many examples as I possibly can until it's as clear as possible. A linear progression is the idea that for novices, if you just increase the weight, they will linearly progress and become stronger and better. It's not quite accurate, it's not quite true, because at no point is it really linear at all, but it's useful in that it gets people to train. But the problem is it instills a faulty way of rewarding yourself through training. I'll give you the example as best I can. You walk into the gym for the first ever time and you squat for the first ever time. Now, you just put the empty bar on your back and you squat 20 kilos, right? That's the first time. You go home, you're like 20 kilos, whatever. That's an empty bar. You're like really sore. The next time you go into the gym, you kind of learn how to squat. You maybe can squat 30 or 40 kilos, right? So you squat 30 or 40 kilos. Cool. The next time you go into the gym, you're not going to be able to squat 60 kilos, that's quite a big jump, but you can probably do 42.5 or maybe 45, whatever. The next time you go into the gym, let's say you did 45 before, you maybe can do 47.5, sorry. And the next time maybe 50. Now it starts to get difficult. At this point now, you can't keep going through these 25 kilogram jumps. You've got to go through smaller jumps. So maybe you jump up by 2.5 kilograms or 1.25 kilograms, whatever the smallest plates you have, and then you can keep going up. Eventually you get to the point where you're going to fail. When you do in fact fail, first of all, it feels crappy because the word fail is in it. Whoever did anything where they failed and felt good about it, it sucks. So first of all, it's horrible to fail because it's hard work. It's an RPE 10. You get the feeling of failure, which is sucky, and you get all of the poor form that you would have had traveling up to failure. If you imagine your bench press when you're at like an RP 7 or an 8, it's really clean, it's really nice. When you get all the way up to the maximum amount of effort you could do, your bench press goes from to and all that stuff starts happening. The problem is in this weightlifting thing, there's not enough focus placed on the execution of doing things and far too much emphasis placed on the fact that you actually executed the thing, which is a video that I'm going to do as well. But for you training to become better at something, as anyone that's done any sport knows, the best way is drills. You just do the same thing over and 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 over again. And it doesn't necessarily, well, whilst it does overload progressively, but it doesn't need to progressively overload on a training by training basis. But because of your comparative strength at the start, you get used to a certain level of adaptation. And programs tend to maximize that, often to trick you into believing you're getting that much stronger that quickly. So they'll give you a weight, and then they'll give you another weight, and give you another weight, and then give you another weight, and the weight just keeps going up, and you get used to that, and it's rewarding because it feels like you're getting stronger and it feels like you're doing better. But it's not real. You're not really getting stronger. You are really getting stronger, but you're not really getting stronger at that rate, and it's definitely, and even if you are, it's definitely not that sustainable. So if you're completely untrained, you can't squat at all, and then the first time you squat, the next time you squat, you might be able to squat almost twice as much as you squat that first time. After that, maybe 25%, 10%, and then again, like after that, 5%, 5%. That's not going to last. Otherwise, everyone will be squatting houses by now. It tails off very quickly, and even if you have micro plates, it's going to get to a point very quickly where it's the weight increase is too much for you to do, and long before it becomes too much, it's going to be too much for what you should be doing, meaning you're doing reps that you really shouldn't be doing because your form in your execution of them is terrible. So you're getting worse and worse at doing this. If you compare it back to sport, it'd be like somebody saying, okay, I want you to run from here to here and then kick the ball in the top left corner. So you take a few steps, you kick the ball into the top left corner, and it's like, brilliant, good work. And then they say, okay, we're going to try and improve your ability to run and then kick the ball at the end of running. So run from here to here a little bit further and kick the ball into the top left corner. So you do it and you kick the ball into the top left corner. And then because you're getting better and stronger now, it's like, okay, you're getting a little bit fitter. We're going to double the amount of distance you have to run before kicking the ball. So this time you run and you kick the ball into the top left corner and it hits the crossbar, but it still goes in. It's not as accurate as the one before. Instead of that point of them saying, okay, let's do the same thing until it goes in cleanly, they say, okay, brilliant, that'll do, that's good. That technically happened. So now we're going to increase the distance again by 10%. So you do it again. This time it hits the crossbar and the post and goes in. And they're like, brilliant, let's add 10% again. And you run again and you kick the ball, and this time you just miss. Now, in a sport, you've gone past the limit of what is acceptable within that exercise. It's no good training somebody to miss football shots. You're not there to kick balls, you're there to become better at kicking balls. But in weightlifting, you're often there to kick balls effectively. So, what they would say in football is, stop there, we're going to keep practicing this until you can get it in the top left corner. In fact, what they would probably do in good football programming is go back to the one before that you were better at kicking the balls and just do it 100 times until it's drilled into you. So then when they extend that range a little bit, you still get it in the top left corner. In weightlifting, they say, brilliant, you kicked it, and they extend it by 10%. You run again, kick it, brilliant, and they extend it by 10%. Every time they're extending the run before you kick the ball, your kick is becoming worse and worse. The power from the kick is dropping, the accuracy from the kick is dropping, and just because you ran and you actually kicked the ball, they're letting you do it. In weightlifting, you keep going, increasing the distance, or sprinting before kicking the ball until you sprint so hard that you can't actually get to the ball before burning out. So you sprint and you just run out of energy and fall down, or you go to kick the ball and it just touches your foot but it rolls to the side or something like that. You actually go to failing to do the thing completely. So before you failed, you had that massive journey where you were missing the post, the top left corner completely. You had that time when you were hitting the crossbar, that time when you were hitting the post, and you were all over the place. And all you've taught yourself is you've done more kicks of the ball that missed the goal wildly than you've done kicks of the ball that went into the goal. You would have benefited better from just sticking around that area where it was about at the limit of you getting the ball into the goal until you adapted to the point where you can increase that slightly. That is how all training exists in all sports, but not in weightlifting. Because the goal is to get the weight up, people want the weight up, so it makes them feel good to put the weight up. But at the same time, one of the biggest training factors is the weight, or the reps of the weight, which is effectively the same thing. So, it becomes, you're utilizing the progressive overload of increasing the weight incorrectly as a training reward and as a training factor. It would make as much sense as in football, the best way of training is playing a better team in the league. So they don't bother training. The way they get better is by playing a team that's better than them. And then when they play a team that's better than them, the team beats them. They're like, oh, don't worry, let's just play a team that's even better. And just by the act of playing against the team, you will get better. If you play a team that's better than you, you will. Anyone that's on sport knows that if you play somebody that's better than you, you do improve and you do get towards their level. That always happens whenever you play a sport. It's not as effective as training, but it's in that instance you will get better and learn things from the fact that you're playing those people. But if you keep playing people that are better than you, you will just keep losing, which is demoralizing and is not great training. So you're playing against people that you lose to them, and then because you like the idea of playing better and better people, then you play someone that's even better and you lose to them even worse. And that is effectively the training protocol of weightlifting for most people. If you see them in the gym, they just add weight and add weight and add weight to infinitum, not getting any better at doing it. I've been coming up with the way in which to program it for novices for a long time, the way in which to make it most user-friendly. A method of training that jumps out of that cycle, the cycle of insufficient training up to sufficient training through to poor form through to failure. That is the cycle of all training cycles. You start light and it's not worth doing it until it is slightly worth doing it, until it's pretty much worth doing it. You get to an optimum place, and then past that your form degrades and degrades some more and keeps degrading until eventually you fail. It's a bell curve where the good training only happens in this area, but about 65% of the time you're outside of that chunk. So whatever your programming is, it will tend to always increase the weight and have no real facility to decrease the weight. Whereas it should be more natural. Since training inherently makes you stronger, why would you need to program lifting heavier weight when it would happen naturally anyway? It would if you do a 50 kilogram bench press 3 times a week, you're going to get stronger and stronger and stronger to the point you need to increase the weight. There's no need to place increasing the weight as part of the training protocol to give the person a reward. It just gets them used to something that won't happen. Also, if the person is training at the only reason that the lower half of the bell curve, the bit where the weight isn't high enough, exists is to make it so the person doesn't fail so often, to make them feel bad. But if you don't push them to the point where they're always failing, to the point where their form is terrible, and you keep them in the middle of that bell curve, then you can do away with the bottom bit where they were doing useless training and just keep them in that sweet spot. The training I've devised keeps people in the sweet spot. And that's the theory I just really wanted to get out and explain to people. Hopefully that made some sense. Bradley Aidan Johnson. If you have any queries or theories or anything, let me know. Peace.